Hello and welcome to Auto Shenanigans. How the devil are you? Have you had a good week? My name is John. Thank you very much for joining me for another exciting Great British Road Journey. This week I've come to the county of Cheshire, a place that we've all forgotten existed, but here it is. Contributions to society include possibly the oldest cheese, railways and salt. Fair enough, and of course we'll be travelling around the county to see what other remotely interesting things we can find on a journey that'll take us from Crewe to Chester. As always, to help navigate our way around, we'll be using my 1923 Michelin guidebook, period-correct maps, and we're in Crewe, so that means railway content. Even my guidebook is a bit of a train spotter, suggesting we visit the London Midland and Scottish Railway Works, aka the London North Western Railway Works, aka the Crewe Works. It opened in 1843, and when my guidebook was published, it employed 8,000 people, a vast chunk of Crewe's population, which at the time was around 46,000. If it weren't for the railway works, Crewe would very likely have never flourished into the delightful town that it is today. Shortly after the railway works opened, the railway company made plans to build an entirely new town to house thousands of people, which they did, and they named the town Crewe. Interestingly, named after Crewe railway station, which already existed, so it's a town named after a railway station. In the mid-1980s, much of the works was sold off for redevelopment and the company sold to overseas buyers, today employing only a few hundred people. But luckily, you can get a job at a huge factory just down the road that was built in secret by Rolls-Royce and the government. This is the Bentley car factory, and here they make Bentley cars in a factory. As said, it was built by Rolls-Royce and the government and was known as a shadow factory, a top-secret factory built in preparation for the Second Small Disagreement of 1939 to 1945. They predicted that the shit was about to hit the fan, so they built several factories like this around the country to manufacture things like ammunition, uniforms and tanks, whatever. And in the case of the factory here in Crewe, they manufactured Rolls-Royce Merlin engines, you know, the sort of thing that you'd find in a Spitfire. Not that one, dickhead. At the time, the factory employed over 10,000 people and they produced 25,000 engines, which is incredible. But after the war, and with not a lot to do, Rolls-Royce used the factory to produce cars, the first of which rolled off the production line in 1946 and was a Bentley Mark VI. And if you're wondering why is it a Bentley and not a Rolls-Royce, that's because Rolls-Royce took ownership of Bentley in 1931 after the Wall Street crash of 1929, which saw Bentley unable to meet their debt payments. And now it's owned by Volkswagen, who make fancy Golfs. Well, there we go, two huge industries, and we're only just getting started. Good work, Crewe, keep it up. Our route today is fairly straightforward, but it will take us through some smaller towns that I've never heard of, so who knows what we might find. But before all of that, we're heading to Nantwich, which, unlike Crewe with its new town industrial feel, is an old Roman settlement and features one of the highest concentrations of grade-listed structures, the oldest of which is St Mary's Church, which dates back to the 14th century. There aren't many other buildings of this age in the town because it was mostly destroyed by a huge fire in 1583, although this had a positive effect on the town because it was rebuilt with all of these lovely buildings. Oh, sorry, wrong B-roll. But another great fire-surviving structure can be found on Hospital Street, where, in 2020, a new tenant moved in and opened a cheese shop called The Cheese Shop. It's an independent company and they offer over 150 varieties of cheese, but when in Cheshire, there's only one cheese to consider, some genuine proper Cheshire cheese. Cheshire cheese is said to be one of the oldest recorded named cheeses. I don't really know what that means, but Cheshire cheese was first mentioned in 1580. I assume up until that point, cheese was just called cheese. It is a good cheese, but it has one design flaw. It's a crumbly cheese, so slicing it and using it in a sandwich is just not possible. It's not as popular as it once was. In the 1960s, we were munching through 40,000 tonnes of the stuff. Today, it's more like 6,000 tonnes a year, but that's still a fair amount. Anyway, the cheese shop is lovely. If you're passing this way, why not stop in and support a local business? I said cheese 18 times in that last bit. Moving on from Nantwich, and our journey takes us along the A534 through many small villages that aren't mentioned in my guidebook, such as their insignificance. However, there is, or was, something significant underneath. As you drive along the A534, you might notice this chimney. Today it's nothing more than a landmark, but it used to be part of Bickerton copper mine, which is believed to have been opened in the late 1690s. The chimney marks the location of what's known as the engine shaft, one of several shafts, but this one came later with the mine's expansion opening in 1807. The copper exists in a Triassic sandstone known as malachite. Whilst the copper can be extracted, malachite can be used as a mineral pigment, providing a striking green colour owing to the copper content. Mining would come to an end here in the 1860s, with the site left abandoned for many years before being demolished in the 1920s, with the exception of the chimney. A short distance from the old copper mine is the village of Tatenhall. My guidebook doesn't have any suggestions on interesting things to see or do, but at the time there were only 1,000 people living here. I'm surprised it gets a mention at all. However, just up the road from here there is something very interesting that definitely didn't exist in the days of my guidebook, and it's a specialist drive-through. Let's take a look. I'm just heading into the ice cream farm, home of the world's largest ice cream shop, which is an official world record. But what if, like me, you're lazy and can't be asked to get out of the car? Well, the ice cream farm is also home to the ice cream drive-through, or drive-in. It's quite simple really. Drive in, park up, scan the QR code and peruse the menu, make your selection, and then after a short wait the ice cream is delivered to the car. The ice cream that they sell here is Cheshire Farm ice cream, which is made on the dairy farm next door, and they've been doing that since 1986, and since then it's won countless awards. It's a lovely little success story of a family-run business that's now selling to over 1,000 retail outlets, and they produce 10,000 litres of ice cream every day. All I've eaten today is cheese and ice cream. Excellent. We are to head to our final destination next, and to get there we'll pick up the A41, which will deliver us into Chester. And as we head through the city we're forced to use an alternative route because much of the original road has been pedestrianised. That said, our detour takes us past an abandoned building, so let's take a look at that. This is Dee House. It was built in 1730 for the then Mayor of Chester, and it was used as a private residence until the 1850s when it was handed over to a religious organisation. It's a bit of a mixed match of architectural styles owing to the fact that it's been expanded during different time periods, and while some building works was going on in the 1930s, they discovered the remains of a Roman amphitheatre. This Roman amphitheatre, it turns out that Dee House had been built right on top of it. Whilst it had been speculated for years that such a thing existed in Chester, no one had ever found any trace of an amphitheatre, and then by accident they stumbled across this, first by discovering a small section of curved wall. This was most annoying for the local council because they had plans to build a road through here, and at the time they didn't really care for any Roman remains, but a preservation society got involved and managed to get the road rerouted, which is why today it curves around the site in such a way. The plan was for the road to be straight. My guidebook doesn't mention the amphitheatre, but that's because at the time of its publication it was yet to be discovered. Instead it suggests we visit Chester's city walls, which is now a scheduled monument. It's the most complete Roman and medieval town wall in the country, and whilst it was originally built for defence purposes, today it's a wonderful tourist attraction that acts as an elevated walkway around most of the city, complete with bridges across roads, towers and fancy clocks. In total it's 1.8 miles long, and it's only missing 100 metres of the original structure. Recommended by my guidebook is something unique to Chester known as the Chester Rows. Basically, it's a row of shops, but the building layout is very interesting indeed. What you've got is a row of shops built slightly below ground level, and above that a secondary row of shops that are set back, allowing for a continuous covered walkway that's elevated above the street. They f***ing love an elevated walkway in Chester. The structures, if that's what they are, date back to the medieval era, and they're found on 4 of the main streets in the city, and they're believed to be the only example of such a thing in the world, and I think they're fascinating. There's even little bridges to take you over the roads and everything. And there we are then, guys. That's all we've got time for this week. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, there is of course a button specifically for that, and if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. That would be wicked sweet awesome. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever it is you get up to. My name's John. You've been watching Auto Shenanigans, and I'll see you guys next time for another exciting Great British Road Journey. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.